We're nearly out of the Vince Russo era of WCW, and I can't fucking wait. Holy fuck this show. I'm John Retlin with a retro review of WCW Fall Brawl 2000. Now, it wasn't the worst pay-per-view put on during the Russo era, but it was definitely one with the most squandered potential, because there were some matches that really could have worked here, but there was a lot of dodgy finishes, a lot of interference. One elimination match got stopped actually for a good reason, a return nobody asked for, Booker T winning, and then also a heel turn that nobody fucking wanted and nobody wanted to boo, and it was fucking rotten. And you know, the negatives far outweighed the positives on this one. Now, I can understand somebody liked this pay-per-view. Yes, compared to something like New Blood Rising and a couple others, this one at least wasn't as bad, but it was still really, really fucking terrible by pay-per-view standards. I would have been embarrassed had I paid for this. Unfortunately, when I watched it at a friend's house, they paid for it. So, hooray! I actually gave them some money because I felt bad about it. But anyway, let's move on. So we have an action figure type entrance, intro, where they have action figures for Scott Steiner, Goldberg, Nash, and Booker T, various others, hyping up the various matches that are going to happen tonight. Now we get Shivani, Hudson, and Mark Madden on commentary. And fortunately, Scott Hudson is back, so he can kind of even things out, because Shivani can only do so much to carry the show when Mark Madden is dragging everything down. Scott Hudson had just recently, him and his wife had a kid, so congratulations to them. I know this was 20 years ago, but I hope the boy or girl is healthy and happy. So, we get Elix Skipper with Major Guns versus Kiwi with Paisley. It's Cruiserweight Championship, that's what I'm going to fucking call it now. This match wasn't bad at first. There were a few botches because these were guys that were put on TV, and especially pay-per-view, a little bit too early. They did have some good moves, but there was like a botched leapfrog that looked like it hurt, actually looked like it rocked Skipper and hurt Kiwi. But, there was a moonsault by a Skipper that just hit the freaking cameraman right outside because nobody bothered to, recognize the space between everybody. It was an impressive moonsault, but fucking hell, he just kicked the goddamn camera. And then the Natural Born Thrillers are on the stage, and Skipper hits the guardrail at one point, hits his knee, and then gets hit again. And then while the referee's distracted, Sanders runs in with the stickball bat that he got from Vito when Johnny the Bull beat up Vito recently in that stickball bat on a pole match. That's hard to say. And then the overdrive 1, 2, 3. And Kiwi gets pinned, so Skipper retains the championship. And then soon, above average Mike Sanders will become Cruiserweight Champion. Oh dear. And then the announcers kill time, and then we get MIA members, Chavo Guerrero, and I know they have different names, but MIA was a stupid stable, as I've said in some of these previous reviews. The Wall, Lash LaRue versus 3 Count. This match was apparently added last minute, and it wasn't bad at first, but the crowd really didn't seem to care. Now, the crowd got into it by the end, but a lot of this was just moves for the sake of moves. The Wall obviously brought a table out, and then would eventually go through it later. Now, he got back up, he dragged some people out, and then the Lash Arrow, or whatever the fuck they call it, the Cajun Arrow, I'm not actually sure what Lash LaRue called his finisher, because I didn't see him win a whole lot of matches during this time. He got the victory, 1, 2, 3, and then Nash blows off a kid who wanted an autograph, and I'm sure no doubt gave that kid some merch and an autograph right after. It was obviously staged, but Nash was like, I don't care about the fans unless you're going to pay me. And Nash is pretty good to the fans from what I've heard. But, this was just when he was in his big, sexy, all-about-myself phase. So, like a lot of his phase in WCW. We then get to the Harris Brothers versus Chronic in a First Blood chain match. The First Blood stipulation was added by Chronic before the match started. Now, what would you expect from this? Some brawling, a couple guys go in the crowd, and at one point we get, dodgy finish stuff, because of course we do, because the Harris Brothers bleed first. Damn shame Nazi Harris Brothers bled, for having Nazi tattoos. They deserve to get their asses fucking kicked. And even though one of them bleeds, I think it was Ron, I actually don't know. I don't know the difference, I don't fucking care, because they were a fucking abortion of a team. Chronic should have won, but no, they didn't. Barbed wire bat to Brian Adams' face, not that one. The wrestler, not the Canadian singer. Now the Canadian government has apologized for Brian Adams on several occasions. And Adams is bleeding, and the referee, since he was down, wakes up, sees Adam bleeding, doesn't see the other one bleeding, and decides to just call it in the favor of the Harris Brothers. Madden yells incessantly, which just absolutely destroys any, heat or whatever that the Harris Brothers could have had. Not that they had much anyway, because they weren't very fucking good, did I mention? And Chronic does high time to the ref, because of course they do. And then we get Hugh Morris saying he will prove the USA is the best by beating Lance Storm in this next match. And oh boy, is this where things got fun. Lance Storm at Major Guns versus Hugh Morris. I know, general erection. Dick jokes. Do you fucking get it? For the U.S. title, Duggan is the special guest enforcer. And Jim Duggan has said he's all for the USA. He's not coming out of retirement to wrestle, but he's going to be this enforcer. He's going to help Hugh Morris win. He's not going to help him for shit. And I got nothing against Jim Duggan here. I can't imagine he wanted to do this, but since they had him under contract, they were like, well, let's just fucking have him, turn heel. For no fucking reason. He gets Canadianized, and, the Maple Leaf gets the tap out, even though Hugh Morris is completely out of it, because Jim Duggan lays his wood all over the back of Hugh Morris. Why the heel turn? Why? This was, I actually know why, but it's just looking at this time, why the fuck? It was because Duggan had his cancer battle in the Canadian healthcare system and stuff like that, and he got his bills taken care of, or something like that. He was part of Team Canada, Mr. USA, that'd been in wrestling for about 20 fucking years by this point. Mr. USA, and he turns heel. This isn't Hulk Hogan's heel turn. It's definitely not Sergeant Slaughter's heel turn. It was a pointless heel turn, but like a lot of Russo stuff, swerve, bro. Fucking swerve. I'm so glad that Russo's not going to be on TV after the next pay-per-view, Halloween Havoc 2000. It should have been Halloween Havoc 99. They should have never fucking brought him in because the company wouldn't have survived regardless. It was going down the shitter. His creative and the AOL Time Warner merger just fucking killed it. Yes, the ratings improved a little bit in the first couple months when he got there. They didn't improve enough to justify all the bullshit he was doing, like Pinata on a Pole, the Screwjob finish at Starrcade 99, and a whole bunch of other shit where people were pissed off because Russo wanted to push a whole bunch of young guys who should have been pushed but weren't fucking ready for it. And that was the fault of WCW and the previous administration, easy for me to say, for not pushing younger talent sooner because it would give them a ceiling. But yeah, Vince Russo helped accelerate the death of WCW, even though the merger is what fucking killed it. And Jamie Kellner, is that who the fuck it was that decided, no, we don't want that anymore? And then the Thrillers are there with Mean Gene. This is the famous one where Sanders gets called a prick by Mean Gene, and then O'Hare gets his hands on Mean Gene and says, blow it out your ass. Which was just fucking funny. Blow it out your ass, O'Hare. I don't know why angry Mean Gene was so humorous to me, but it just was. I got 3 pages of notes, by the way, so we're going to be taking a bit here. But yeah, Mean Gene doing that. It was the classic line. Then we get the Filthy Animals, Ray, Hoovy, Conan, Disco, Tigress, Vito, and Paul Orndorff, their mystery man, versus Natural Born Thrillers, Jindrak, O'Hare, Sanders, Palumbo. Stasiak was on... Stasiak was there. He was on commentary. We get Reno, Johnny the Bull. It was fucking stupid. It was so fucking stupid. It's like, what the fuck was the point of this? It was a 7-on-7 elimination match. The crowd popped for Orndorff because he'd been beaten up by the Natural Born Thrillers recently, and he looked in good enough shape for 52, but obviously had the atrophied arm, so yes, he was not in great, physical shape outside of, his physique. He obviously had a lot of wear and tear, the neck injury and all that stuff, and the atrophied arm. He had to retire right after this. But the match could have worked, but when it was 7-on-7 and you waited till 6 pissing minutes in to have the first elimination, and you're only going to have the match go about 16 and a half minutes, you've kind of shit the bed there. And they do a dodgy finish and then continue the match on the following Nitro to just say fuck you to the paying customers. Yeah, accidental chart buster, Disco's horrible version of a stunner, accidentally beats Conan. O'Hare gets the cover for 3. Snake Eyes from Reno pins Disco, then Snake Eyes pins Vito a couple minutes after that. So Vito's on a roll, or Reno's on a roll rather, and then Reno gets pinned by Nutcracker, the leg drop onto his groin from Ray from the top, and there we go. And then Hoovy gets dropped on the guardrail and then hip tossed into the ring. Pretty impressive visual by Jindrak and O'Hare. Shanton Bomb pins Hoovy, and then Orndorff gets in, hits Spike Pile Driver, and pins Johnny the Bull. Then everybody gangs up on him. He gets hit with a cane, but he keeps coming back. Crowds, not molten hot, but they're popping a little bit for a veteran here who had, made his name in New York. He'd been in Florida, been in other territories as well. But he made his name in New York having a pretty damn good house show run with Hulk Hogan. Really, really good house show run, to be honest. And then he hits the Spike Pile Driver on Jindrak, but unfortunately suffers a stinger. Now, I'm not sure if this actually was legit and they, just went with it, or if they just said, Orndorff, stay down, we don't want you to hurt yourself. I'm going to go with it being legit, but regardless, Orndorff did retire soon after this, so I'm pretty damn certain there was some validity to it. Because you never know with some of these things. I mean, even though they treat it seriously, if you do that right, you can get the fans buying anything. The bottom line is Orndorff got pinned very soon after. O'Hare covered him safely, and then I think it was Tigress, Ray, they continued to, battle the Thrillers, and then, and Tigress is actually in this match, which means it was 6-on-7 because Tigress doesn't mean anything in the ring. And honestly, this was pretty, it was pretty fucking chilling because it was sad to see Orndorff like this, and he was just laying in the ring. They didn't want to move him. They continued the match, and a couple minutes later, they said, no, we got to call it off because Orndorff was injured. They couldn't keep it going. So they continued the match on the following, Nitro, and they would just do it with the rest of the participants. So, yeah, they killed time. Felt bad for Orndorff. Had a hell of a career, though, so, I mean, it's not like this is the worst way to end his career. I mean, it kind of equals what happened with Sting against Seth Rollins at, Night of Champions 2015. Almost, the 15-year anniversary of that, actually, from this show. So, yeah, crowd cheers as he's carted away, meaning respect. They're not cheering, oh, yeah, he's injured. No, they're not doing that. But they're like, okay, he's carted. They see him, thumbs up every bit. He's going to be okay, but it's a scary situation. And then Medusa calls Tory a bimbo bitch. And then we get after Orndorff had been, temporarily paralyzed, because of, that botched pile driver, hey, let's have a scaffold match, Pittsburgh plunge match, where everybody can fall down and possibly get paralyzed. Great way pacing the card. They really should have done the next match. But anyway, yeah, it's Shane Douglas and Tory Wilson versus Kidman and Medusa. Yeah, this wasn't good. This wasn't good at all. Douglas should have not been anywhere where he was required to climb on anything. Kidman was a talent. Tory should have never been in the ring, though to her credit, wanted to try to do more stuff, and WWE stifled her. Medusa had checked out by this point. Medusa hits a few moves, but then tries to climb down and is cheering on Kidman, and then she takes a bump onto a crash pad. Very obvious crash pad. I mean, I don't want anybody actually hurt, but it's just it was very soft landing. And she had to sell like she was hurt. And then Douglas tosses Kidman off, and Douglas had said, if I don't win, I will refund every person's money in the arena. And by the way, the arena holds 18,000 people for hockey. And the announced attendance was 8,600. So it wasn't even half full. And I don't even know if all that was paid because WCW at this point couldn't really fill the goddamn rec center very well without papering it. Because they fucking torpedoed the whole goddamn product. Thanks, Vince Russo. Thanks for that. So, yeah, this was bad. Jarrett then attacked Sting before because Sting had declared himself the winner on the previous Thunder by saying ring the bell when he had Jarrett in the Scorpion Deathlock, because that makes fucking sense. We then get Tenay showing up at David Flair's house. It was at this point I was questioning my life decisions and why the fuck I'm watching WCW 2000, but then I remember you guys enjoy me ranting about it, and also it's fun to rant about things. So I actually don't mind venting about this stuff. But he shows up, David has food all over a pizza down there, drinks, newspapers scattered all over. He's paranoid about who the father of the kid is because he's not the father of Stacy Keibler, aka Miss Hancock's kid. But she won't say who the father is, even though she knows. Gonna lead to the David Flair Buff Bagwell feud that I am not fucking looking forward to. David's all paranoid. Tenay's asking him about everything, who the father is. David blames Reed, who was 11 at the time. Reed, the unfortunate, untimely death of Reed Flair. Remember that? Remember that? Remember that fucking shit? What the fuck was this about? What the fuck was this angle about, I mean? It's unfortunate that the man passed away, but just fucking hell. He was 11. Come on. It's not a Mary Kay Letourneau situation. And by the way, fuck that bitch. I hope she's burning in hell. So, he attacks the mailman because he thinks the mailman can be the father of the kid. David does, not Reed. That would have been amusing to see a kid attack a mailman. But then Scott Hudson, I believe, says he went postal. This, you know what? No. I haven't ripped up notes in a few reviews, actually, so I'm just going to do this. This is what happened to every single thing. So there we go. I'm going to set those nicely there because it's bad to clean it up. This angle is absolutely fucking atrocious. David should have never been in wrestling. And if he was, he should have never been put on TV until he was ready. And he wouldn't have been ready until at least 2001. They put him on TV well before he was ready. And then Sting versus Great Muta versus Vampiro with ICP. ICP joins commentary with Mark Madden, and I instantly was, again, questioning my life decisions. Mark Madden and ICP on commentary, thus making it the worst pay-per-view of 2000 so far. I know what I said earlier, but fucking Christ. Jesus Christ, this was messy. And I mean, it's Sting, Muta, and Vampiro. And when Vampiro is the least of the workers in the ring and is actually still pretty good, that's saying something. It was 5 minutes. Muta solved. Vampiro breaks it up. ICP gets in. A bat to everybody. That's clown abuse, says Scott Hudson. Scott Hudson was on the goddamn roll tonight, carrying the show when Shivani was totally checked out, because I don't blame Shivani at this point. And then Scorpion the Muta for 3. But then Muta gets attacked by ICP, and Sting helps Muta out. And I don't even know if this led to anything. I don't know if Muta teamed up with him on the next Nitro, because a lot of this got blocked out of my head, and it's all bubbling back now where, oh boy, we're entering a lot of bullshit here. Once we get done with Halloween Havoc 99, it ain't great. Or Halloween Havoc 99. Halloween Havoc 2000. It didn't get much better after 99 either. Once we get past Halloween Havoc next month, or the following month, at least it gets a little better. Not much, but a little less bullshit. A little. So, unfortunately, actually, I think, it just is only going to get more stale until the company goes down. Completely down. The company is down. WCW deserved to go down because of this. I felt bad for the people that lost their jobs. I really do. The people that were trying. But that company, as Ric Flair said, that company needed to be shut down a year before it was. It was miserable. Jeff Jarrett in Titans gear, because the Titans have just beaten the Buffalo Bills and are in Buffalo, New York. So suddenly all the Buffalo Bill players are there, at least some of them. Versus Mike Awesome. It's Bunkhouse Brawl. Before, Jarrett yells at the Buffalo Bills players, "You got beat by a lateral pass," is what he basically says. There's a bunch of weapons in there, and there's a noose. Now, I know the Bunkhouse Brawl is essentially a, Southern creation. And sure, they've been doing noose stuff at hanging angles for a while. And stuff like that to get heat and to get return matches and stuff like that, and grudge matches and whatever. There's a noose. A bunch of black players are in the front row. Also, Mike Awesome's here. Mike Awesome would later hang himself about less than 7 years after this. A few months before Chris Benoit's passing, and a few months before Sherry Martel's passing. It just looking back on this is very fucking eerie that Mike Awesome, would later unfortunately hang himself. And that's not the answer. I just want to say, it's never the answer. If you guys are feeling that way, whether we are friends or not, please talk to me. Just a little sidebar here. Please talk to me. Even if we don't agree on wrestling, you don't feel like that. I deal with those kind of thoughts and that kind of, sadness a lot. But just don't do that. Please don't. You need to be here, even if you feel low. You can always talk to me. Anyway, let's get back to the match. Yeah, a noose in the ring with Mike Awesome there, and it was bad. This is a very, very bad match because Jeff Jarrett was not really all that good. And he would later do a thing with the Titans on an Impact Wrestling pay-per-view when they were NWA TNA. And then we get, we get a barbed wire table. Barbed wire surrounding like a little bit of the table, like a few strings. Still would hurt. And then the Bills, surround the ring, and it's a mess. Now, by the way, earlier in the match, I forgot to write this down, but earlier in the night, Mike Awesome arrives on the Partridge Family bus, and Gary Coleman, what you talking about, Willis, the Different Strokes kid, well, man, because he was a midget, comes out and is like, won't do the line. Well, later, Gary Coleman shows up. Gary Coleman low blows Jeff Jarrett. It would not be the only time Jeff Jarrett would be low blowed by a midget. The Howard Stern stuff's coming up. Fucking hell, I hate myself. I clearly do. And then, even though Jarrett's down, he hits Gary Oldman. Would have been interesting to hit Gary Coleman with the guitar. And then Awesome wins soon after. This match was ridiculous. And the referee's carrying Gary out like he's a kid. He is short. But it's like, fucking hell. Oh, God. And it's still going. We still got fucking 2 more matches. This was bad. This was really, really fucking bad. We think it's Scott Steiner versus Goldberg, no DQ match. They gave this nearly 14 pissing minutes. Steiner, who could not really work beyond a 5-minute match without getting blown up because of all the working out he did. And then Goldberg, who could never work a long competitive match that wasn't against DDP. Because DDP at Halloween Havoc 98, a lot of Halloween Havoc talk on here, got him his best competitive match, at least up to that point. Yeah, this was bad. This was really fucking bad. Scott Steiner put on his face mask because he had that eye injury when Goldberg had hit him with a lead pipe. And then yells at fans. Goldberg's arm was targeted. Scott Steiner's face and back were targeted. It was as bad as you would expect. Now, you don't expect a lot of these guys, or either of these guys, to do flips and drop kicks and stuff like that. You expect brawling, you expect brutality, you expect physicality. I'm not saying they didn't do some good power moves. I'm just saying that at nearly 14 minutes, this match was about 3 times as long as it needed to be. Yes, they built it up as a grudge match, but if you had this be a quick squash, had Steiner do a few moves, and Goldberg beat him, it would have made more sense. But they were also trying to build up Scott Steiner because he was going to take the title from Booker T at Mayhem 2000, which replaced World War III. Yeah, you know, the World War III concept. Remember that? 3 Rings Battle Royal? Anyway, let's just fucking move on with this. Medusa comes down because we needed, more people that didn't belong in wrestling here. And then we get a chair to Goldberg. He's bleeding from the top of the head, no less. Probably headbutting the door too hard because he's a smart individual. And then we get a bad table bump. We get a spear despite the pipe. We get Russo coming in and attacking Goldberg. Vince Russo, the return that nobody asked for. After brain surgery. Maybe they had it removed, but then again, he never was born with a brain, so I don't know what they would have fucking removed. And in a bad landing on an electric chair where, Steiner was supposed to go throat first, or at least neck first, and catch himself with his arms. He just went over the side and hit his legs and then just dropped back down. But then got back up and was attacking Goldberg. Pipe to Goldberg. And then, thrown about. We get a belly-to-belly on Goldberg. Dropped on his head. Russo down, but then a recliner, third time the recliner was on, but Goldberg was out, and Steiner's declared the winner. And then Russo was standing over Goldberg like he's ever worked out a goddamn day in his life. I'm not saying I have, but I don't get on TV doing that kind of shit. And then the Buffalo Bills help Goldberg up, and then we get Booker versus Nash. Cage heat match. Yeah, it's just right there. That's your lot right there. Those are my notes. I'm not going to toss them around and everything because this isn't worth it, but this is my way of getting back at the pay-per-view for putting me through this. Besides Nash bleeding, this was not a good match. Booker won with a bookend. The match wasn't good. Kevin Nash should have not been world champion at this point. Unfortunately, would be world champion again. They would toss the title around a whole lot by this point. It was fucking ridiculous. So anyway, agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.